India is a very poor country. It has always been a very poor country. In fact, one of my long-standing arguments with Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party and Anna Hazare before that has been this whole mythology that frankly Sangh Parivar also spreads कि India कभी सोने की चिड़िया था. India कभी सोने की चिड़िया नहीं था. Even in the Gupta golden period, India was an extremely poor country. Coming back from Bangalore one day, I thought I'll buy a book because I was a bit bored, and it's a longish flight, Bangalore to Delhi. But I found a thin book, which looked very encouraging because it was so thin. And I said, I'll finish it on the flight. It was called Swaraj. It's a book written by Arvind Kejriwal. This is his manifesto. मैंने कहा चलो कभी देखा भी पढ़ा भी नहीं है इसको. I've been fighting with these guys. Let me read it. So I took it, and as I wrote later, I finished it before the plane had reached, was overflying Bhopal. So Bangalore to Delhi, Bhopal is about 60% of the distance. I'd finished the book by then. And it was so outrageously stupid that sort of smoke was coming out of my ears. So I came home, and I think next day was Friday. So I used to write my column on Fridays earlier. Now I write on Wednesdays, which is this evening. And I wrote an article on just what that agenda said, just how juvenile and how stupid it was. And I said he has an Amar Chitra Katha view of Indian history. And he's building on those mythologies. In fact, a colleague of mine gave it a brilliant headline. You can find it on Google. It's called Arvind Chitrakatha, right? And we then said that we are happy to get any responses to this. No responses came. So I'm giving you this long background to tell you where I come from on this issue. The fact is that if you go back, you will notice that Anna movement and Aam Aadmi Party learned to use technology and social media much before Narendra Modi did. And frankly, if you see how they have made their recovery over the past 6 to 8 months, they had a big setback in May last year. They only got 4 seats in Punjab. All the others were lost. You can see that if there is one area in which they have beaten Narendra Modi and his army of loyalists, his very well-organized army on social media, it is on social media. Because abuse for abuse, they've beaten them. Fact for fact, they've beaten them. And they've just been much cleverer and much less cruder. And look at the way, and that is the beauty of Indian politics. Look at the way he's turned everything that was thrown at him as a weakness into his strength. It's BJP, RSS trolls who started calling him a muffler man. He relaunched himself as Muffler Man immediately. In fact, they adopted that brand. They became Muffler Man. They made fun of his cough, right? He started appearing in public wearing his muffler and started coughing into the microphone. That this is the way I am. His deliberate use of Hindi, his deliberate, persistent use of Hindi. He speaks very good English. I mean, he went to IIT. He was an IRS officer. But you see, even when he gives interviews to English channels, Rajdeep Sardesai to Barkha Dutt, it's spoken in Hindi. He speaks in Hindi and makes them speak in Hindi. He sits in studios with his muffler, like this. It's almost like Fidel Castro's cigar. So what I'm saying is that today changing technology, changing attitudes have made loyalties in our politics very ephemeral. So old times when voters stayed loyal to one party or one system or one ideology for a long time are now gone. You are dealing with an exciting new India, which is a purely, if I may say so, and increasingly, not purely yet, but increasingly a post-ideological India. But the good thing is, it's an India which is capable of thinking about its own future. It's an India that's not looking back at the past. That change we've seen coming about for the past 15 years. And I've been saying it, some of you may have heard it. I've been saying that India is moving from a politics of grievance to a politics of aspiration. One of the arguments I've had with the Aam Aadmi Party, or before that, Anna movement, etc., and their notion of what they call as Swaraj. And this will come up now. This will be one of the first problems they will have, because in their manifesto, they promised a new law called the Swaraj Act, whereby they will devolve power to mohalla committees and street committees and what we call in Delhi resident welfare associations. I'm sure you have something equivalent in Bombay and elsewhere, maybe building societies or whatever. That they will then, please read that tiny book, Swaraj, because Kejriwal is not an important man. So one of the arguments was that you can say, all right, I will devolve all power to street committees and resident welfare associations. But life is not so simple. I mean, if you come to my colony where I live in Delhi, there are people from Delhi here, it's a colony called Safdarjung Development Area. It's a well-to-do colony. I would say sort of A, not A+, A++. So it's maybe a notch below Vasant Vihar, a notch above Hauskas, the way Delhi is divided, but still quite well-to-do. We've lived there 25 years. Resident Welfare Association, I get a booklet. I've never attended a meeting, but I get a booklet every 3 months with new members, numbers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a thin booklet of about 400 people. And you can see that in that colony, about 400 families live. But if you had a real RWA, first of all, if this is the RWA, then it's a very elitist concept because it doesn't include my drivers, my security guards, my cook, my caretaker, my press wala, the sweepers on the street, my sabzi wala. All those people also belong to the same colony. So if this RWA is then evolved government money to be spent in this area, then it's excluding all the poor and the downtrodden, the same people who voted for Aam Aadmi Party. If it includes all of them, and there is a free election in my colony for the Resident Welfare Association, where my cook's vote counts for as much as my vote does, then most certainly I will be outnumbered. And most certainly the president of my Resident Welfare Association will be a cook or a driver or somebody or somebody. And then I will not have the same commitment to this idea of Resident Welfare Association. I just think कि ये हम लोग पढ़ा लिखा लोग चलाते हैं, right? इसलिए ठीक चलता है. इंडिया बर्बाद इस साला इसीलिए हो गया है कि ये सब भूखे नंगों के हाथ में पावर चली गई है. पावर तो भूखे नंगों के हाथ में जाएगी डेमोक्रेसी में, right? You have to accommodate them. Or they will smash the gates, they will smash our walled communities, and our security guards will join them. Now, in that, I'm trying to simplify it, in that complicated socio-economic environment, a new factor has come in, which is that all these people, the security guards, the drivers, what is the one request I get from any such people all the time now, for the past many years? It's about getting a kid into a good school, right? Or the kid's passing school, getting the kid into a good college. But because it's a generational thing, right now it's mostly about school. I remember when Arjun Singh was Minister for HRD, he had kept the power of giving preferential admissions to children in central schools. These are not big convent schools or a Reliance school here or Jamna Bai or any of these schools. These are just central schools. And the biggest favor he could do was that if you went to him, कि Arjun Singh ji, मेरे driver के लड़के को settle school में. Your driver was yours forever after that. The aspiration that this sort of marginal majority in India has for their children, particularly in the cities, is exactly the same as I have for my children or you have for your children. And that is where conflict comes in. Because where we have power, where we live in our workplaces, power comes because of our accomplishment, because of our background, because of our genes, because of our caste, because of how successful our parents were, right? There, the poor and the aspirational poor, who are no longer willing to be resigned to their fates, have no say. In our living environment, house owners have a resident welfare association or a housing society in Bombay. Others are left out. They get even with you only on the day of the voting. So my big my big difference with this anti-politician mood or anti-political mood, mera neta chor hai, that Anna movement has built up was precisely this. That to say that politics is all bad, and Anna Hazare saying कि vote क्या है, लोग एक शराब की बोतल पी के 500 रुपए लेके वोट देते हैं, that completely undermines our democracy and undermines the poor, and it further excludes the poor. It's almost like saying, how can a vote in the hands of the only thing, frankly, of exactly the same value in the hands of my maid and my hands is a vote. So how does my maid know to exercise that right wisely? That was the main contradiction. I think today Arvind Kejriwal has answered that, has accepted that argument. So in fact, I tell him that I won the intellectual argument. You are winning the political argument, electoral argument. And he's appealing to the same people. And he's appealing to the same people with the promise of empowerment. It has many implications. There are some risks because the kind of populism that he's come up with, one, he'll find it difficult to live up to it. And if he cannot, then as it happens in politics, he will blame somebody. He can blame the central government, he can blame the BJP, he can blame the Congress, he can blame all conventional parties, but he can also start blaming the corporates, he can start blaming the free markets. I heard yesterday one of his spokesperson, Satishi Marlena, in the discussion where I was present, but I kept my counsel at that point. She said that all of India's problem arises from the fact that political parties take funds from corporates. And because they take funds from corporates, they have to, when they come to power, they have to pay back to the corporates. So they pay them back as commissions, as contracts, and in terms of natural resources. And then she went on to say, for example, the kind of ordinance they brought out on land acquisition law. I can't see how this will go through. Now, there is a worrying side there. And if Aam Aadmi Party is not able to fulfill its promises of power at half price, free water, bringing carrots to 1/10 the price, gobi to 1/5 the price. Because, what they have also learned from other parties is that politics mein jhoot bolna theek hai, right? All is fair in love and war and politics. So if you pick up the column from the last issue of India Today, I said that in one of the meetings, Kejriwal was saying, हम जब यहाँ पे थे इसी टाइम में जनवरी में 2014 में तब गोभी थी 8 रुपए किलो, आज है वो 80 रुपए किलो. तब गाजर था 6 रुपए किलो, आज है 60 रुपए किलो. In the same ground in Islam area, there were carts selling vegetables. And while he was saying this, I was checking prices with them. Gobi was 16 rupees a kilo. Tomato was 14 rupees a kilo. Carrots were 6 rupees a kilo. Right? And he was saying 80 rupees hai. What is selling for 16 right there, he's saying is 80 rupees and people are believing him. Because, in politics, when people start trusting you, they don't question your claims that day. They may question them later. So he has sort of oversold these ideas. I'm not sure all these are his core beliefs. I mean, certainly you did not see him in a muffler until he made muffler sexy, right, for his politics, and made it sort of his brand archetype. So, but on the other hand, think of the positives in this. The same people who are feeling left out, because with economic reform, with growth, it is obvious that some people have done much better. Many have done better, but many others feel that it hasn't done enough for them, in the sense that the gap between the rich and the poor has increased. It happens in every society with growth. Every society, as they say, it's not my line, I wish it was, but I heard someone say it, that a rising tide lifts all boats, but it lifts the yachts first, right? Because they are designed, they are light, etc. So what do you do about all those who get left out? What had started to worry me lately, particularly since Modi came in, was this breathless feeling among India's well-to-do elites. ये साला अभी ये आ गया है ना, अब देखो इंडिया ग्रोथ करके दिखाएगा. अब चाइना का पीछे 10%, 12%, 14%, अभी देखो हम दिखाता है। एंड ये सब जो बाकी आप लोग हो, मुसलमान हो, दलित हो, ट्राइबल हो, पुअर हो, आप थोड़े दिन चुप रहो, राइट? ये बहुत हो गया आपके लिए, throwing crumbs at you. It has done nothing for you. You should be smart enough to understand this. So give us 10 years. 10 years, all the poor should be quarantined, right, in a way, politically, should not have a say. And we will, meanwhile, give you 10 years of growth. What's your problem? In fact, I was having an argument the other day, just 3 weeks back, with an Indian, a prominent Indian businessman in Davos on Muslims. And I said, look, 18 crore Muslims, if 1% of them decided that there was no future for them in India, India will be ungovernable. Because an Al-Qaeda of 18 lakhs, right? What is the Indian Mujahideen? It's not even 20 people today, right? But Al-Qaeda of 18 lakhs. So in India, you cannot shut any sections of the population out. You have to be very inclusive. You have to sound inclusive. A lot of hypocrisy comes in, but hypocrisy is fine in politics. You have to take everybody along. And I said, look at this cabinet. It hardly has a Muslim, doesn't have a Christian, right? Indian cabinets cannot be formed like that. Every community in India has to be made to feel included. And the poor in India have to be made to feel included, because otherwise they'll not let you be. And Mr. Modi doesn't think like this, in the sense that Mr. Modi would not think of excluding the poor and carrying on. But his support base, his megaphones, the elites had begun to think that elites had taken over India. So the poor in India respond to arrogance. The poor of India don't mind if you are rich. The poor of India they even accept inequality. Because we have so many gods and goddesses, you can blame one of them. And our basic psychology is Bhagwan teri maya kahin dhoop kahin chhaya. Because we've always been a very poor and a very unequal society. But the poor do not want this now to carry on to their children's lives, because they think their children deserve better. Because they've seen too many people like themselves, whose children have done better. So they say, uska kar sakta hai, to mera kyun nahi kar sakta hai? The second thing is that now look at the penetration of mobile phones. Look at the penetration of social media. Everybody knows everything now. So what used to, a thought that would take 3 years percolating, now percolates in 3 weeks. The emergency lasted 19 months in 1975, between 1975 and 76. Today, an emergency-like situation will not last 19 weeks, right? People will be up in arms because stuff will travel immediately. So in that situation, the rise of Kejriwal now, with whom, as I said, I have many documented differences and continuing documented differences. I've even been sort of subjected to dirty tricks by them, because that's the way they are. They are a new generation. In spite of that, I feel grateful, and I think all of you should feel grateful, and that's the reason I changed the script of today's talk, that these people have now come in to take away, to play the role of a pressure valve. So they've given India's underclass the feeling is, साला power तो हमारे पास में ही है, और ठोक दिया इसको हमने, right? और ठोका भी तो क्या ठोका? As they say in Urdu, कि अल्लाह मियाँ की लाठी जब चलती है तो आवाज़ बहुत दूर तक आती है, right? वो इतना छोटा सा दिल्ली का municipal election, उसमें क्या verdict है? All of India. Now this will have the effect of changing India's politics, and I would say moderating India's politics. So much as I disagree with the rise with Kejriwal's politics and his approach to politics and economics, I think his rise has proven that in our society, pressure valves are intact and very functional. This will make Mr. Modi moderate some of his methods. Hopefully, this will make him shut some of his idiots up, who say, 4 बच्चे पैदा करो, 5 बच्चे पैदा करो. So I celebrate this change. I have concerns about it. I have disagreements on it. I think my life will be more interesting because Congress party was giving no opposition to the BJP. These guys may not have numbers in parliament, but because of their intellect and ability and because of their fleet-footedness, will prove a much more effective opposition. So I think I'll stop there.